Hey guys, it's Amy White from Daily Successful Living. Thank you for joining me today. I'm super excited to have you here. So today it's just me. I'm not doing a guest today because today I want to talk about more of a personal story of a mistake that Aaron and I made a few years ago with a business decision. So I'm talking specifically about what not to do when starting a business. So a couple of years ago, we got approached by a friend. Well, it was a family friend. Let's just leave it at that. There was a family connection there to go into business with them with an eBay store. And we looked at the numbers. This friend was very, very experienced, had done this for years and years and years, and really knew his stuff. We weren't worried about that at all. And so we ended up taking a leap of faith and we invested $25,000 into this business. And for the first little while, it went awesome. Like it really felt like it was growing. The numbers looked good. We really were like, score, this is kind of exciting. I think we're doing well. So as he got busier, we needed to kind of take the company to the next level. So long story short, we ended up putting an additional 15,000 into it, which was mistake number one. We should not have pulled our money out. And keep in mind, we also did this from our emergency fund. Like really, we pulled $15,000 to invest in a business out of our emergency fund. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So we ended up investing. The problem was when we took the business to the next level, our friend was no longer able to run it out of his house. So all of a sudden, as we're expanding the company, we have all these extra expenses associated with it. So we're paying rent, we're paying utilities, we're paying insurance, all these extra fees that, quite frankly, we thought we had budgeted for, but we hadn't budgeted enough for and really hadn't taken into account all the costs associated with it. And at the same time, our friend ended up having some medical problems of his own. He had some family issues and was not able to be there like he should have, monitoring the employees and kind of keeping things up to date. And I don't know if you know this, but eBay businesses are very, very cyclical too. So you have to really make sure that you have enough cash so that you can purchase the product at just the right time. And then you have to get the product out quickly enough so that you can start generating more cash. So it's all very timing driven. And so when you have a owner who is sick and suddenly is not able to monitor it as well as he should, then you've got problems. And my husband and I were busy doing our own jobs and stuff like that. And so we didn't really know enough of what's going on. So long story short, company went under. We ended up getting dumped with about 800 shoes. My friend literally showed up at our house and with boxes and boxes and boxes of shoes and said, "Here you go." So we stuck them in our garage in bins. Well, at one point the bins finally broke and completely knocked everything over. So we had to spend the day cleaning out the garage. And as I was cleaning out the garage, I started writing the blog post about this because I've got a blog post and I'll link to it too because it goes into more detail on some of the details. But either way, it was kind of one of those, yeah, it was one of those great decisions we made. But from that experience, I learned 10 things about what you need to do to start a business successfully based on the things that we didn't do. So anyway, I want to kind of go over those 10 things with you guys. So first thing you need to do is if you are going to start a business, you need to treat it as a business from the very beginning. That was one of the biggest mistakes that we made is from our perspective, our friend owned the company. We were just investors. And so we didn't really treat it as our business. And I see a lot of people, particularly as they start side hustles and stuff like that, is they just think of this as something where, oh, I'm just going to make a little bit of extra money. I'm just going to be kind of doing my own thing. I don't need to treat this as an actual business. But here's the deal, you guys. If you are starting a side hustle, if you are trying to earn extra money, even if you're just doing dance lessons or something like that, you need to be treating this as a business. Like make business decisions based on true business facts rather than just random, this is what I want to do. You need to, at minimum, have a trade name. You need to open up, I personally prefer you open up an LLC. That's my recommendation. But you need to have an EIN number. At minimum, you need to have separate bank accounts so you can keep your money and keep it all tracked so you can do the tax write-offs and all that. But bare bones, treat your business as a business, regardless of how big it is or how much you want it to be a business. Like, even if you're just like, oh, I just need to earn a little extra money, I'm not going to be doing anything major, still treat it as a business. The second thing that I highly, highly recommend is you need to budget. And I know you're probably like, why in the world would I need to budget? But here's the deal. If you want to be a successful business person, you have to budget. Like, seriously, you guys, budget. And when I say budget, I mean detailed budgeting. Like, this can't be just write it out on a piece of paper and hope for the best. You need to sit down and get some actual costs. I mean, one of our biggest issues is we thought that the insurance was going to be less than it was. We thought that the utilities were going to be less than they were. We didn't think about like an alarm system, just a lot of extra little expenses. We didn't factor in the cost of all the stuff associated with employees. Like there was a lot of little costs that we did not truly budget in when we were creating our pro formas. And when you're doing it, you guys, when you're trying to put together a budget for a new company, I highly recommend overestimating all the expenses. Like put in a lot of, oh, we're going to have miscellaneous and add an extra 5 to 10% to most of your expenses because invariably things are going to cost more than you expect them to. It's just, I hate to say it, but that's just life. Like it's going to cost you more money than you think it's going to. And on that side note, you're probably going to make less money than you think you're going to too. So I recommend drastically decreasing what you think you're going to make, increase in your expenses, and then look at your numbers and say, can I actually make this business viable? Can I make this work? Because if you look at it and you're not going to actually be able to make money off of it, you're just wasting your time. The other thing you've got to do, you guys, and this one is a little bit unique to our situation, but I think it applies to everything you do, and that is you need to be involved. And when I say involved, that means you need to know the inner workings of your company. A lot of times it's very tempting to be like, oh, I'll have X person take care of this. I'll have them take care of this. I'll kind of farm out all the different responsibilities. And I get why people do that. And there's nothing wrong with outsourcing and using virtual assistants and all that type of stuff. But before you go that route, make sure you know how things actually work. I mean, for example, with this shoe business, I had no clue how to get into some of the systems. I didn't know anything about what was actually happening at the warehouse and what needed to happen. And so when my friend got sick, I couldn't go in and cover for him. I didn't know. And again, that's kind of a unique situation, but the fact of the matter is you need to know at least enough about every aspect of your business to where you can run things if you need to. So don't get yourself suckered in to think that you don't need to know what's going on. You need to be involved. The other thing I recommend, number 4, is to do your research and then do it again and again and again and again. Because as you start a business, first off, you need to sit down and say, okay, this is the field I'm going into. Look at the people that have been successful in that field. If you can, find people that haven't been successful and interview them too, because that's going to provide a lot of good information. But you really do need to sit down and just research everything that you possibly can. Hop on Google and ask all the questions that you can think of. Call people that are actually in the field and ask them questions. Probably in a different city, just so you're not like direct competitors or something, but you need to be doing your research. And don't forget that just because you've started your company, your research doesn't end there. Like as you start to get into the company, you're going to suddenly find a gazillion, and I really do mean a gazillion things that you didn't think of when you were putting together your budgeting and like your pre-business plan and all that. So you need to be constantly researching and looking for better solutions, try and find more efficient ways of doing things that cut costs. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can go through and do. Another thing, and this one's probably going to surprise you, this is number 5, is you need to separate your business from your personal life. Obviously, we had a friend that we did this business with, so that's part of the reason I bring that up. But I think that most small business people run into this problem in one form or another, whether it's because they end up hiring a friend or a neighbor to help them out, or they're working with close friends who then become customers. Like say, for example, let's go back to dance lessons. You're doing dance lessons and your friends' kids are coming to you. You've got to be able to separate that personal from your business and make sure that honestly, that you're sending out bills and that people are paying on time. Like you're not running a charity here. So you really need to make sure and keep everything separate. Now, this is also for another reason too, and that is the whole concept of commingling funds. If you go through and you're using your personal funds in your business account and back and forth, then all of a sudden that erases any legal protection you have if something goes wrong on your business. So say, for example, let's do the dance example again. Somebody gets hurt in your dance studio and you've gone through and you're using personal funds to pay for some things and then you're using business funds to pay for personal stuff. All of a sudden, it's in the corporate world, it's called piercing the corporate veil. But essentially what you're doing is as you're commingling, you are losing your protection. And so if they can go through and prove that you've used personal stuff, like if you've paid for personal expenses with business, then all of a sudden that meshes into your personal life. And so you suddenly can be a lot more liable for that type of stuff. So really make sure you keep all that kind of stuff separate. Number 6 is you need to hold weekly and monthly meetings. And even if it's just you yourself, like you're the only person in the business, I still recommend that you sit down once a month, maybe once a week, depending on where you're at with your business, and look through the numbers. You need to do an assessment. You need to set goals. You need to be going through and looking at the full picture of where your business is, where you want it to be, the mistakes that you've made. Like the mistakes you've made is critical. So I highly recommend, especially if you've got business partners or you have any type of team, that at least on a monthly basis, you're sitting down and doing an assessment. I think that that's one of those things that will, oh my gosh, it can be completely life changing if you do it right with a business. Um, Number 7, this one is really important to me. This is something that I firmly believe in, and that is you need to hold true to your personal ideals, excuse me. I say that for two different reasons. One, we went through, and as you guys know, I'm huge into the whole getting out of debt, all that kind of stuff. And at that point, we had paid off our debt, and our friend approached us and was like, "Hey, we need to get a business card, a credit card for the company." And even though I'm like huge anti-credit, I knew we'd end up carrying a balance on that credit card. I was like, "Okay, we'll do it." Yeah. Do you know what was the hardest thing for me when I sat down and had to pay off all the debts for this business is writing a check for just under $15,000. You guys, $15,000 for that stupid credit card because I went against my personal ideals and got a credit card for this business. So I highly, 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 highly recommend that as you're going through and doing a business, that if you live debt free in your personal life, you need to be treating your business the same way. And I think that applies to all the other aspects of it too, not just on a financial sense, but if if something happens within your business that you do not feel comfortable with on a personal level, meaning like dishonesty or you're being asked to do stuff that you don't agree with, you know what, you guys, even if you think you're going to end up losing a little bit of money on it, hold true to your ideals. It's not worth going through and going against what you believe internally in order to make a buck. Trust me, it will come back and bite you. You will always, always regret it. So I know that sounds funny, but that is number 7 on my list. I think it's really, really important. Number 8 is that major management decisions need to have some type of approval process. Now, again, you may just be a one woman show and you're like, oh, well, I don't need to worry about that. But I would still recommend writing down why you're doing certain things. For example, when you have your monthly meetings, sit down and take notes of what you're thinking, what your assessments are, and why you're going through and doing stuff. And this is even more important if you have business partners or anything like that. You need to be sitting down and saying, okay, this is why I'm doing it, and essentially set up policies and procedures for yourself. And especially if you have employees, independent contractors, anything like that, you need to be very, very clear on who makes management decisions, who has ultimate authority, and kind of who that chain of command flows through. Like make sure people know and understand what's happening within your business. Number 9 is you need to monitor your staffing requirements very, very closely. Now, a lot of small businesses are using independent contractors. They may not have employees. So let's kind of break this up into two different areas. If you have employees, you need to be monitoring this super duper carefully because employees cost you a lot of money. And even if you don't have work for them, you still got to pay them, even if they're just sitting around, which was one of the issues that we had. Like we went through and we staffed up with this expectation of where we were at one point. And then when my friend got sick, we weren't able to churn the inventory as quickly as we should. Well, we still kept those employees. I don't know why, but it happened. And part of that was because, again, we were not paying enough attention. So you really need to be monitoring that staffing because I think that if we had potentially gone through and gotten rid of people sooner and kind of leaned up really quick, maybe we would have been able to get through the rough season and the company would have survived. So just think that through. That is one reason that I really do like the virtual assistant stuff where you can go through and just kind of hire people on demand. Being able to use independent contractors makes a huge difference in this area. So if you're using independent contractors, a lot of times you can kind of just manage this on your own. It's not as much of an issue. But even then, make sure that the contracts that you negotiate are fair for both parties. One, you don't want to take advantage of people, but also you really need to make sure that as you are using these independent contractors that you're using them effectively and that you're not wasting your money. So you just have to really pay attention to your staffing. The last thing I recommend is to put everything in writing. And again, this is even if it's just you still need to be writing down what you're going through and do. And if you have a business partner or you've got other employees or anything like that, you really, 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 I cannot say that enough times, need to make sure that everything is writing. Again, that was one of the big mistakes we made is we had all these things where we had like email chains back and forth where we had changed things, but we never actually had anything formal written up and signed. And so when things went south, it was just messy, and we ended up just honestly, we kind of just got stuck holding the bag and it was not fun. Like I said, we lost $55,000 because we did not put things in writing. We did not pay enough attention. We were not doing the things that we needed to in a business. What's interesting is I went through and looked at these 10 things that we did wrong on our business. I realized that none of these mistakes were major. All of them were pretty minor things. The problem is when you combine them all together, then all of a sudden it becomes big. And so it's a really good reminder that as you're starting a business, it's the little things that are going to catch you and cause you problems. So you need to be watching for those little tiny mistakes and doing your best to avoid them and be preemptive about it. Because to be honest, I don't know ultimately if our business failed because it was poor management or because the business model was bad. I kind of think that the business model was fine. I think it failed because of poor management. And when you think about it, that means I lost $55,000 because of poor management skills. It's a lot of money. So learn from my mistakes. So anyway, this list is just the tip of the iceberg, to be perfectly honest. There's so many other things that you need to be doing when you're starting a business. But as I was sitting there this morning and just kind of thinking through some of the different mistakes that I've made financially, I was reminded of this and really just felt like it was something that some of you guys might want to hear as you're getting ready to start businesses, as you're starting side hustles. Because here's the deal, you guys, it is so much fun to be a business person and to be that entrepreneur and to really just have a vision of something that you want to do and be able to make it happen. I mean, it is such an amazing thing. Like watching my blog grow and my podcast and all that has been so much fun. I have loved the learning and just all the different things that have come as a result of it. But I have made a lot of mistakes on the way. So hopefully you guys can learn from some of them as I share them through various stories. But anyway, I hope this podcast helps you guys out. If there's any questions you have on what you need to be doing as you get ready to start a business, feel free to leave a comment, drop me a note. I would love to hear from you. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. And if you like what you hear, I would love to have you as a subscriber.